Third baseman Paulie playing it on the grass against Lindor.
Don't know why.
And he pulls one on the ground. A chance for two. To second one. Back to first. And the Mets' agonizing 3.5-month slow motion collapse is complete. It is unfathomable that this collection of talent winds up outside of an expanded playoff system after having the best record in baseball for the first 2.5 months of the season. Everything goes wrong over the last 3.5 months, and the Mets find themselves on the outside looking in.
Mets therapy. Andrew Claudio here. The 2025 season is in the books. I've now had 6 hours to process and digest and really come to terms with the fact that it's really over. They really did it. They really blew the lead they did. They really completed the collapse and missed the playoffs in the way that they did. I know I didn't give any thoughts on the actual game earlier. I thought Gary, Keith, and Ron summed it up more perfectly on my post-game reaction. Plus, hopefully you've already heard the pod that I did, the reaction live stream that I did with Rich McLeod over on Just Mets, their YouTube channel, or on Game Theory with Sam Vecini, where Sam told me before we started, hey, I'm on a Frank the Tank style a rant. Oh, rap, that'd be funny. A rant at the beginning of the show, if you got it. And I was like, I can't be Frank. I've gone to too much therapy to ever be Frank, but I do find his rants entertaining, and I'll give you what I got, so you'll hear those 3 minutes if you go to the Game Theory YouTube channel. My thoughts immediately afterwards are there. We're 6 hours removed from it now. I'll give my thoughts on one of the worst collapses in baseball history and in Mets history, and I gotta say, I've landed on 3 prevailing feelings, right? That's what you do in therapy. You talk about your feelings. And the first feeling I have after 162 games of watching this baseball team, I can't believe I'm saying this, it's freedom. We are free of having to watch this team going forward. We are free of having to pretend that they were going to amount to anything, whether it's how bad the pitching was, whether it's how hot and cold this offense would get, whether it's how not dependable anybody in this bullpen outside of Edwin Diaz was. And if it wasn't for this stupid wild card format where 3 wild card teams make it, there's this great tweet. I forget who sent it out, but it listed that, like, congratulations to the Cincinnati Reds, and it listed all the different things that the Reds didn't do. They're like the first team ever to make the playoffs without a 270 hitter, a guy that hit, I actually know all 4 of the qualifications. So the first team to ever make the playoffs without these 4 things: a 270 hitter, a guy that hit 25 home runs, a player that won 15 games, and a player that struck out 200 batters. This is not a good baseball team. They lost today. They gave the Mets control of their own destiny back for 2 innings. And it was appropriate that I actually got to watch the Mets blow it one more time in those last 2 innings. Not that they were going to come back from 4 runs ever. It's appropriate they finish 0-70 when trailing after 8 innings. First team to do that, though the last team to do that, or the only team that did that last season, was, the last team to do that in like the last however many years, according to research that I did weeks ago, is the White Sox from last season that lost 121 games. I don't have to pretend that they were going to have any hint of a pitching rotation that could make a run. If the Reds make a run, they upset the Dodgers, go to the NLCS, whatever, I will not be the fan that's like, man, that could have been us. Because it wouldn't have been. They have a pitching rotation. We have Nolan McLean and maybe Clay Holmes. And then you saw what Carlos Mendoza thinks of the rotation that he would have been able to use in the playoffs if a third game came about. This season was never going to amount to anything. And it's appropriate that it ended the way that it did. And I am free from having to believe that baseball could happen. Not that the Mets could do anything, but that baseball could happen. Something weird could happen come playoff time. I can just now evaluate this collapse for what it was. And look, the next feeling I got to talk about is a bit about how this compares to 2007 and 2008. Because I was devastated after both of those losses. Because I was heartbroken after 2006. 2006 is the worst sports loss of my life. Beltran taking that strike three. I mean, you want to talk about a grief period? I was in college for like a little bit in 2006. I went to college full time in 2009. 06, I went to college right out of high school because I was told to, and then had no idea what to do with my life, so I left. But while I was away at college for that one semester was the 2006 playoffs, and my dorm mates, like my professors, could all tell something happened to me, and it's that the Mets lost to the Cardinals in the 2006 NLCS. 07 and 08, I still had an affection for those guys that gave me 2006 and this rivalry with the Phillies. And it's like the end of 2007 came out of nowhere. It was a 2.5 week collapse that I didn't know was coming because it had showed no sign of it coming all season. Then 2008, I said goodbye to Shea Stadium while they collapsed too. And again, they just had this alumni weekend, and you saw Carlos Beltran and Delgado and Reyes and all these other guys from those teams that Mets fans still love and adore. And what they're really known for is collapsing and losing important games down the stretch of seasons, and they're still beloved. The feeling I have after this collapse, the second feeling I have, is embarrassment. Because this wasn't an out-of-nowhere collapse by a team that I had grown an affection for. Like when I saw those teams collapse in 07 and 08, and I guess 06, really just for Beltran, because I felt for him. I felt like when he took that call strike three, he took a nasty pitch from a borderline Hall of Famer, and that might be something he's always remembered for. And I felt for him. I don't feel anything for these guys. I feel for Francisco Lindor. I will say that. That guy played like a captain the final week of the season, and I hate that he made the last out. Pete Alonso's going to go into free agency wanting to be a Met, and he's probably going to get nickel and dimed by a front office that cares more about infrastructure than actually putting a product on the present playing field. He played his heart out this last weekend and hit the hardest ball that any Met has hit all season, and it ended up in a glove. When if it has some elevation, it's the grand slam that saved the season in back-to-back seasons. Juan Soto. I have so little blame for Juan Soto. I know that people are there are some out there saying he didn't have a clutch hit all season. He didn't do enough. The reason the Mets had any real offensive production was because of Juan Soto. You like Pete Alonso's 125 RBIs? It's probably because he had a guy that was on base more than anybody in baseball for the majority of this season, not named Shohei Ohtani. Like, the guy had a 40-40 season, is going to finish top 3 at MVP. Like, what are we doing? Blaming Juan Soto for not doing enough. He did his part. The pitching didn't. And Brandon Nimmo, I have obviously that one moment last Saturday where he just hits the ball in play. The Mets win and they make the playoffs if they beat the Nationals. He had a good year. Like Brandon, I can't only bring that up and not bring up walking off Yohan Duran against the Phillies a month earlier. I can't ignore the home run he hit against the Cubs. If anything, he brings evens out or cancels out his Washington game because of the Cubs home run where he hit the 3-run home run. Nimmo had a good year. And then as far as pitching is concerned, it's like just Edwin Diaz and Nolan McLean. You know, those are the guys I feel individual affection for, that they had to be part of the collapse. I guess Brooks Raley and Clay Holmes too. You know, everybody else, I could kind of take it or leave it if you're here in the future, which is why this embarrassment that I feel. That's the second feeling. I don't remember if I said it. The embarrassment I feel that this is the team I had to watch for the past 4.5 months. This is the pitching rotation that I had to watch since mid-June. Like the Frankie Montas starts, the Paul Blackburn starts, the guys that the Kodai Senga second half starts, the Sean Manaea second half starts. My goodness, the cliff that David Peterson fell off of. And look, it goes into some of the outside noise, too. Of course, Yankee fans are going to come to Met fans' doors today and talk about how you got Juan Soto and you ended up missing the playoffs. And, Juan Soto is a New York Met and you missed the playoffs. Like, the more things change, the more things stay the same. They've earned the right to talk. They lost a bidding war to Little Brother for the first time ever. And now it's their time to gloat. And in a week, when neither of us are in the playoffs anymore, we can just go back to worrying about the offseason and beginning the next bidding war that will probably beat them in. But I understand if, the Mets celebrating it in the winter means you get to laugh at them at the beginning of the fall. The last feeling is skepticism. And Steve Cohen made it very public that he spent all this money on Juan Soto and all the free agents of the past few years and the infrastructure of the ballpark and the experience of Citi Field. And we were 16th in attendance last year. Sent a charge into Mets fans. Mets fans showed up. Highest attended season in Citi Field history. Mets fans were there. And what did you give them? You gave them a team that missed the playoffs, largely underperformed for 93 games of a 162-game season, completely collapsed from the midway point of the season on, that June 13th date on, had 0 ninth-inning comebacks, barely even tied the game come ninth inning either, 0-70 when trailing after 8 innings by your baseball team. And the skepticism doesn't just go to you, Mr. Cohen, it also goes to your front office. Mr. Stearns, you had a credibility after last season that very few Mets fans were allowed to question. And I was one of them. I thought, hey, look at the bullpen he put together last year. I didn't know how they were going to compete last season. I saw the 1-year rentals that he gave, the projects that he brought us with going into last year with Quintana for a year and Severino for a year, and Manaea on a 1+1. And they turned out to be a playoff rotation that was outstanding. He's like, all right, I trust you, David Stearns. I didn't look at the lineup and say, all right, he's got a playoff lineup there. I thought this would be a transition year. And then guys that you stuffed into the farm system and filled out the 40-man roster with, like a Jose Iglesias and a Jesse Winker, and keeping Starling Marte around and keeping Jeff McNeil around, and all these good clubhouse guys like JD Martinez. The way you built a bullpen last year, Phil Maton, Danny Young, Ryan Stanek, these guys came out of nowhere to help the Mets build a team that went to the NLCS last year. And I trusted that, and you had that credibility. And then this season, Frankie Montas keeping Paul Blackburn around, the trade deadline you had with Cedric Mullins and Gregory Soto and Tyler Rogers, who was largely effective, but I've never trusted a guy that I don't know if I can get a strikeout from him. I don't even blame you for the Ryan Helsley thing. Who knew that he was just going to forget how to pitch or forget how to play baseball so much so that he had to learn a different way how to pitch because he was tipping pitches. That is not something anybody could have foreseen. You don't have the same credibility that you did a year earlier, Mr. Stearns. So when you were playing chicken with Scott Boras over Pete Alonso, last year there was the built-in trust that, hey, if they let Pete walk, I got to trust David Stearns. I don't trust you. I am skeptical of your best projection or best laid plans if it doesn't include Pete Alonso. I am skeptical that you know what's best for this team if this is the team that you gave me this year. I am skeptical that this team will be better off without Pete Alonso if the only excuse that you give me is because I said so. So yeah, Pete Alonso better be a New York Met. Edwin Diaz better be a New York Met. And then you have a lot of work ahead of you because I know who I want to be the number one starter, at least one of the top 2 in the rotation, you should probably go looking for an ace instead of trying in bits and pieces this team together. And I think Clay Holmes can be a starter, but if you transition him back to the bullpen, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. You have a lot of work cut out for you, David Stearns. And this front office that won a lot of fan points last offseason, I don't want to hear a word about attendance next season. Mets fans have earned that, if anything. That you don't get to chastise them for how they put their hard-earned capital back into the team. No, now you have to give us a better product that doesn't collapse over 3.5 months and make them so unlikable that I have to watch the Marlins celebrate their World Series in your faces. So, I wish I had a better way to end this season, a better note to end this season on. I will just say, if you did follow me over any point this season and start checking out Mets therapy sessions, I'm going to try and keep a consistent schedule throughout the off season. For those who don't know, I do a lot of work in the NBA between game theory and Knicks film school, and that is where I'm headed now, to focus on the New York Knicks and the entire NBA over the course of the next 7-8 months. I will check in when I can with a Mets therapy reaction to some news, some predictions, some rumors, and obviously any signings that happen. Follow, if you're just seeing this, please follow on, if you got this far, please follow on the social platforms that run. I have a YouTube channel too that these get uploaded to. And yeah, as always, let's go Mets, but I'll understand if you don't want to say that today. It's fitting, actually, that one of the biggest things that I've always said, I don't think fit the New York Mets. This is a hill I'm willing to die on. The phrase "you gotta believe" has never been less earned by a franchise than this one. Last year, it gave me some of it back. It was points in the other direction. Hey, maybe I should start believing in this team. After today, I don't think it's possible that at any point next year, unless they have a really special season, you can say you gotta believe and not look ridiculous. Thank you for watching. I'll see you at some point this offseason.